Let's go back in time. The date is November 22nd, 1963. We're in Dallas, Texas. President John F. Kennedy steps off Air Force One, and you can hear the cheering crowds. But underneath all that excitement, the city is just incredibly tense. His own team had warned him that coming here was a bad idea. And as his motorcade starts to roll, it's heading toward one very specific place, Dealey Plaza.
Now, to the thousands of people lining the streets, this just looks like a parade, right? But if you look at it from a tactical point of view, something else is going on. There's a plan in motion, and the president's motorcade is about to drive straight into a perfectly engineered trap.
And it all comes down to this one final hour. At 11:30 a.m., the president lands. By 12:20, his limo is getting close to the heart of Dallas. And then, at exactly 12:30 p.m., in a public square called Dealey Plaza, history is going to change forever. We're on a ticking clock, and time is about to run out.
So to really understand how this was even possible, we first have to look at the map. We have to deconstruct the geography of the place, because the layout of Dealey Plaza was unique, and, as it turns out, completely fatal.
In military or tactical language, we're talking about something called a choke point. For the Secret Service, a big, dense city is an absolute nightmare of potential choke points. You've got tall buildings, open windows, sharp turns. Every single one is a new vulnerability. And, well, the planned route through Dallas had one of the worst choke points you could possibly imagine.
See, the route itself had this huge, fatal flaw built right into it. To get onto the freeway, the motorcade had to drive down Houston Street and then make this incredibly sharp, 120-degree hairpin turn onto Elm Street. This wasn't just a turn, it was a tactical bottleneck that forced the convoy into a vulnerable position.
And the result of that crazy turn was a massive drop in speed. The president's heavy limousine had to slow down to a crawl. We're talking just 11 miles per hour. For a few critical seconds, it became this slow-moving, totally predictable target.
And looming right over this choke point, the Texas School Book Depository. The source material actually compares its tactical position to a mountain fortress. I mean, think about it. Just like a fortress gives you the high ground and a clear view of anyone coming, the 6th floor of this building gave a perfect, elevated, and totally unobstructed line of sight right down onto Elm Street. It was, for all intents and purposes, the ultimate sniper's nest, positioned perfectly above the trap.
But here's the thing. Even the most perfect trap in the world needs an opportunity, right? It needs a moment of weakness, a crack in the target's defenses. And on this particular day, the protective shield around the president was dangerously, dangerously thin.
It really was a cascade of security failures, one thing compounding another. First, the president himself liked to be accessible, so he'd requested the limo's bulletproof bubble top be removed. Then, Secret Service agents were told not to ride on the back bumpers of the car, which put them in a follow-up vehicle farther away. And, get this, the full motorcade route had been published in the local papers. They basically advertised his exact movements. All of this meant the agents were just too far away to jump in and physically shield him in time.
To really drive home how serious this was, the source material draws this chilling parallel to another presidential assassination. It reminds us of Abraham Lincoln's guard, the guy who left his post at Ford's Theater. Now, obviously, JFK's agents were highly trained and on the job, but their physical distance created the exact same kind of fatal gap in protection.
Okay, so now all the pieces are in place. You've got the flawed route, the perfect sniper's nest, and the gaps in security. The presidential motorcade is making that turn off Houston Street. It is now entering the kill zone.
Up on the 6th floor, the shooter is waiting patiently. They've built this little barricade out of heavy book cartons to hide from anyone who might come up the stairs. And it's another one of those eerie historical parallels. It's kind of like John Wilkes Booth, who waited for a specific laugh line in the play so the laughter would mask the sound of his gunshot. This shooter is also waiting for a very specific moment.
And there it is, 12:30 p.m. The limousine starts that slow, creeping turn onto Elm Street. The target slows down and moves in a straight line, directly away from that 6th floor window. The trap has been sprung.
What happens next unfolds in just a matter of seconds. But these are the seconds that are going to completely alter the course of the 20th century.
Suddenly, a loud crack echoes across Dealey Plaza. For most people in the crowd, and even for some in the motorcade, the sound is just confusing. Is it a firecracker? A motorcycle backfiring? No one's really sure.
But back in the follow-up car, Secret Service agent Clint Hill knows exactly what he heard. That wasn't a backfire. That was a high-powered rifle. And without a moment's hesitation, he throws his door open, leaps from the car, and just starts sprinting toward the president's limousine.
But the distance, it's just too great.
All those protection limitations we just talked about, the agents being in a separate car, no one on the bumpers, no bubble top, this is the moment where they become absolutely fatal. Another shot hits its target.
Agent Hill is still running, desperately trying to close the gap, when the third and final shot is fired. He reaches the limousine and scrambles onto the back, but it's just too late. The attack is over.
The limousine frantically speeds away, racing toward the hospital. But back in Dealey Plaza, in the absolute chaos that's broken out, we start to see the long-term consequences of those few terrible seconds.
And what about the assassin? Incredibly, in all the confusion and panic, the shooter just slipped out of the book depository and melted into the crowd. It's so much like John Wilkes Booth, who just walked out of Ford's Theater and vanished into the night almost 100 years earlier.
The events of this single day led to massive, permanent changes in how we protect our presidents. Open-top limousines? Banned forever. Route planning became a top-secret, highly classified process. Never again would it be published in a newspaper. The entire rulebook for the Secret Service was rewritten because of what happened right here.
There's a scar that remains there to this day. If you go to Dealey Plaza, you'll find a simple white X painted on the asphalt of Elm Street. It's a haunting marker of the exact spot where the fatal shot landed, a permanent reminder of an architectural trap that tragically, perfectly worked.
So at the end of the day, what does that X really represent? It marks a failure of imagination, a failure to see how a simple public space could be turned into a weapon. And it forces us to ask a tough question. What vulnerabilities are we overlooking right now in our own world? What can this one single spot on a Dallas street teach us about the never-ending challenge of security?